Obviously, the Republic of Ireland play Northern Ireland on Thursday night at the Aviva. It's bringing back memories from a pretty famous night a long time ago now, a quarter of a century ago, when our next guest scored an absolute cracker that changed the course of Irish football history. Alan McLoughlin, good morning to you. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not sure quarter of a century sounds great, but 25 years probably sounds a little bit better for me, if you don't mind.
You can just let that one slide through. Alan, before we get to the game itself, there's obviously been developments in the situation with regards to the FAI and yourself. You issued a statement last night, which is carried in, I'd say, almost all of the newspapers this morning, about the fact that John Delaney phoned you after reading the piece in The Independent at the weekend that you did with Vincent Hogan.
Yeah, that's right. I did a piece with Vincent, and he phoned me. Obviously, I'd had lots of media trying to contact me. Obviously, with the anniversary of the goal. Obviously, I've probably regurgitated every year the same story about the goal annually. So sometimes it gets a little bit much. So I decided to hang on till this weekend, last weekend, and say something then. And Vincent had spoken to me and contacted me very early, so I spoke to him first and spoke with him, and he just basically asked me whether I was coming to the game and was I looking forward to coming over to the game. And I obviously was honest and said, well, I hadn't been invited to the game, and then that starts the ball rolling in terms of the FAI actually trying to contact me on Saturday and again on Sunday. And to be fair, I sort of resisted taking the call. I listened to the voicemails, and they were genuine, and I could hear them. But I decided to take a bit of time and speak to my wife, speak to my family, speak to some close friends from the squad back then, and before I decided to actually take this step and speak to the FAI on the Monday. And they were very genuine, to be honest. Various people call me, and John as well made contact just to apologise for what probably the best way to put it is an oversight. So there's not much more I can do about it. It is what it is, and I'd like to think moving forward with significant events that it can be thought about properly, and not just myself. And with what I was trying to say, it was about a squad of players. I played a very small part in that campaign, although a significant part in the end, but a small part in the campaign. But I classed us all as one squad, and maybe something should have been done with the anniversary of the goal. And it just wasn't about me scoring the equaliser. I think it was generally about the difficult campaign that it was, and the achievements of getting to the World Cup in '94 should have been recognised, in my opinion. But listen, I have spoke to them. They were genuine in what they said to me, which was nice. There's been a development since then. Swindon have appointed a new manager, literally I found out on the late Sunday evening. So, my time this week now is going to be tied up with Richie Wellens and Noel Hunt and helping them between now and Saturday. So the goalposts have changed slightly. So I'll be unable to make the game on Thursday. But, the FAI did extend a hand and ask me to come to a future game, which I've accepted. I'm not sure when that game will be because I can't exactly say for work commitments, but I will certainly be visiting certainly before next summertime anyway.
Yeah, well, maybe something to mark the 25th anniversary of Ireland's participation in that World Cup next year might be an idea.
Well, listen, it's not down to me to make these decisions. I think, like I said, any organisation should not only recognise certainly what's happening now, and that's the most important thing, is what's happening now, and making sure things are working well, making sure the management and the players are looked after and the fans are looked after now. But I still think there's a part to play in recognising the achievements of the past at times, and there's enough people still around like myself and a little bit older, a little bit younger that can remember that, and it's important to I think, and it's my own personal opinion, not to forget these past achievements. They're never forgotten in Ireland, and they're never forgotten in most of the countries when you achieved something that brings a nation together, which it did at that time, and it had done previously in '88 and in 1990, and then thereafter with other obviously major competitions that we've been involved in. So yeah, listen, I'm not the one making the decision in the FA. I'm not the one deciding to and I hadn't heard anything. So but when I'm asked a question, I'm not going to sidestep the answer at the end of the day. If I wasn't invited, which I clearly wasn't, and it hadn't been thought about, then there's nothing much I can do about it. I just have to bat on, but I'm certainly not going to just sidestep the issue, and I never have in my life sidestepped anything. I'm just honest, and that's the main thing. Just honest in my assessment, And I do appreciate the fact that they're taking the time to contact me personally and make contact and speak to me. And as far as I'm concerned now, like, it's dead and buried, and we move on and we'll go from there.
Which is, I think that it's interesting that you brought this up, because it actually opens up that whole sense of what do we do with our relationship with our successful past, because I don't know if the current management setup are, they want a constant focus from the legends of the game, talking about what it was like in their day when we did qualify as a matter of routine over that 8-year period that you've been talking about, or 6-year period from 88 to 94.
Well, everyone reminisces, don't they? Whether you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and you talk about your childhood and your achievements, everyone does that, and it's good to do that. It's healthy to do that. It obviously doesn't help the current team now, whose success hasn't been as notable, because the squad that Martin has in the main is not of the same ilk and quality that certainly Jack possessed. And then lastly, when Mick inherited a squad and of mixed ages, and then brought through some fantastic players that went on to serve Ireland for many, many years. But it's stupid to ignore it, and everyone should draw on that. But to have it churned up every year, I understand it can be quite difficult when things are not going as well as previously. But we all strive, and that things do improve. And again, it's a long haul, and it's difficult. And there has been some success, and with the size of the country and the available players at Martin and Roy's disposal, it does make it very, very difficult for them to qualify, as it has done for the past few years. For in them situations, they have done, and they've done well, and they've really at times, but as they would say in England, batted above your average in terms of a nation and a group of players. But there will be lean times, and sometimes in lean times, that's when you look back at the times when they were what you would call good times, and there's no harm in that. There's no malice from either ex-players along the way. We're all striving and hoping that Martin and Roy and the whole nation of football, which is the Republic of Ireland, progress forward. But we also understand as former professionals that it's not an easy task.
Yeah, I just wonder...
We're more than sympathetic to that.
I wonder, Alan, if what you've done is actually awoken in the FAI a sense that they actually need to pay proper deference to the quality of what we've achieved in the past. I think David Kelly today, either on Twitter from the Irish Independent or in the paper, is pointing out that there's no pictures of the underage teams that Brian Kerr successfully won European Championships with out in Abbottstown, and that we're almost afraid to recognise the strength of these characters because they've been critical of the current FAI administration, and that actually the current administration needs to grow up a little bit and understand that, we're big boys, we can take the criticism, because these players and former managers are coming from a position where all they want is actually what the FAI wants, and that's for the good of Irish football.
Well, it is, and former players, like you say, are all striving for that as well. And I think it's good for the current squad, and there is talent in there to be inspired by former achievements at times, and draw strength from that, and that can be positive. On the other hand, like I mentioned a few moments ago, it can be a negative at times. But listen, I don't get and haven't been drawn into and have no communication in terms of other than what we've had this weekend from previous. I mean, I received a beautiful gold Irish cap many years ago, and that sits proud of that's pride of place in my little room that I have. And like I said, we don't forget what happened and what we achieved and what we didn't achieve at times. And people should understand that it wasn't all successful with Jack and Mick at times, and it wasn't always, rosy and everything worked and we were unflappable and we were the best team, because we weren't at times. There was some, really poor displays at times, but, everyone was riding on a wave and a crest of goodwill and positive results in the main. But when it's lean times like this, I think it's important that everyone understands. And listen, nowadays, you can make a comment on the game, or I can make a comment on something instantly on my phone to address something or say something. It wasn't the case when back in 1988, 1990, and not so much in 94 either. So everyone's got an opinion and you can voice an opinion. But I can't legislate for in any organisation. I can only run what I do at my work and hope that I'm sensible in what I do, and as a football club and as a person that at times I have to not make people very happy with me. I have to lead, I have to manage situations, and I'd like to think you're not going to get everything right. And I think just in this situation, people have stepped forward and apologised, and that's it for me. They've apologised for not recognising possibly not just my achievement with the goal, but the squad's achievement, and particularly 25 years on a significant anniversary. But hopefully things can improve slightly moving forward. But like I said, that's down to people to decide to make a more positive step forward, or keep it as it is, and you move forward. But we'll all support Ireland, and like I said, I watch the games where possible, and fully behind the team and Martin and the squad, because we want them to do well, and it brings success for everyone.
Yeah, I wonder on a more practical level, is there something that we can even chat about here, or we can learn from here, that I often wonder if the FAI make the best of their resources that they have in the country. And when I say that, I mean great former players, not just from your generation, but the generation that came after, even after 2002, when we had great players who were playing in the Premier League consistently. And of course, one of them is involved at the moment in Roy Keane. But I wonder, even in underage structures, if the FAI, not through any malice or anything, but just through perhaps not making the right communication with certain people, could be doing a little more in terms of practically inviting these sort of people into the fold and bringing them in, and perhaps getting them involved at the end of that with coaching with perhaps underage teams.
Again, I can't speak to the FAI. I can't. I'm not going to comment on that. I've been involved in football since I was, professionally since I was 16, and still involved in it today. So, I have a raft of experience and a raft of coaching knowledge and a raft of players into first teams now, and that's what I really enjoy doing, and that's where my strength is, and that's where I'm most happy, really, in that area, because I've been in the other area of first team world. So, listen, again, it's up to people to make decisions. There's a raft of, I'd imagine, very good qualified people who haven't played international football, who are equally as adept of taking teams, and maybe not keep drawing the next players coming over. It could be perceived sometimes as a jolly boys outing to come over, and an ex-player that gives you the actual right to go over and I should be managing this team. It's not. It's them decisions are made like any football club or any association. You live them by those decisions, and sometimes it's right and it works perfectly, and sometimes you have a little bit of a lean time, and it appears that, so particularly for Martin, they can only do and work with the squad of players that they have, and they're trying desperately now to find new blood and new stock to try and take it forward. And but any of the decisions behind the scene is down to the structure, and it's not just down to one person. I think it would have to be a collective decision to make to decide which type of staff you want on board, and it should be respected, because I know how difficult football is, and But like I said, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm happy with how things are progressing in my life in terms of my football, and I've never gone cap in hand or picked up the phone and say you should be using me, or why are you contacting me, or that's not the way things work. If people want to speak to you, eventually they will do, and draw on your experiences, then that's absolutely fine.
It's obviously a big 5 days for the Republic of Ireland. I think every international break at the moment is big for the current team and the current managerial setup. What's your take on how things are going at the moment? Obviously, there seems to be a few kind of elements of light coming to the fruition around the squad at the moment. This week, Robbie Brady coming back to fitness. It's great to see him back in an Ireland jersey. Are you hopeful, Alan, of where we're at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it is, like I said, I'm repeating myself a little bit. It is difficult. Seamus is back, which is Seamus is a fantastic example of someone who can battle back from adversity and real adversity. He leads on the pitch. I did the commentary on Sunday of the Chelsea-Everton game, and I thought he was fantastic in his performance. And he leads by example. Obviously, there's issues. There's obviously the Declan Rice issue. Everyone waiting now to see what he does. And again, the game's moved on. I think you've got your 18-year-old from Southampton. I don't know what the situation is there, but I'd like to think people will be chomping at the bit to get the opportunity to play for Ireland. But things have moved on in terms of your status now, playing for or being selected for England or being selected for Ireland, and where it sticks for you with your own personal development and contractual development. So I'd imagine would differ if you're an England player to an Ireland player. That's no disrespect to Ireland, but that's just the way the world works at the moment. But I'd like to think it's difficult. It's a transition time for Martin and Roy, trying to find a balance, getting ready for the Denmark game. It is a friendly, but it is Northern Ireland, so you want to be competitive. And obviously Northern Ireland have had a little bit of a lean spell in the last few months in terms of results as well, after a stunning performance in the Euro. So things haven't really kicked on for them as well. So it's a difficult one, and again, it's difficult, and it's easy for ex-players and to say, well, this is what you should be doing. I'm certainly not in that camp. I just like to see people put themselves forward to play for Ireland, be proud to play for Ireland, and then that gives Martin a base and Roy a base to work with, and the coaching staff a base to work with moving forward. But at the moment, it seems that people are a little bit reluctant to put their head above the parapet and declare themselves and give people a chance to build a squad and a team.
Alan, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us. One last thing that came out from your piece at the weekend was you were talking about checking under your car, that there were death threats in the aftermath of the game. I think most people probably didn't realise things got that bad for you afterwards.
Well, it was just, I mean, I received a letter from an organisation, and quite a threatening letter, and it was taken seriously. So it was handed on to the relevant authorities at the time, and precautions were taken, and again, I don't know, it might have been someone just decided to make larbo, I suppose, and just decide to try and scare me. But it was quite a tense time. As you imagine, I had a young family at the time, and I was keen to make sure they were okay. Eventually it dissipated, which was good. But that's in the past. Like I said, I mean, I live for today now. Nothing that happened in the past I can change, or nothing will differ. I just have to get on with it. But it was there. It was a credible threat at the time, and thankfully the world has moved on since then. Well,
look, we look forward to seeing you at the Aviva at some point over the next few months. Thanks very much for taking the call this morning, and best of luck at the weekend. Cheers.
No, thank you very much. Cheers.
Alan McLoughlin there giving us some thoughts about the story this week. I think that I'm not here to defend the FAI, obviously, but I think that as a sporting organisation, they've come from a situation where they were under siege. A lot of the reasons they were under siege were from bad decision making. The financing of the stadium took a long time for them to sort that out. The decision to hire Steve Staunton, the extra contract for Trapattoni, not having Brian Kerr involved in Irish football, all reasons that you can point the finger. The fact that the league is in the situation that it's in, you can point the finger at them. But they don't help themselves sometimes with stuff like this, and not actually trying to get the former players involved at whatever level, be it ambassadorial, be it coaching, whatever they need to do to use the footballing family to help promote the game and grow the game, and so that everybody kind of feels part of the same thing, as opposed to you've got the people on the outside of the football family in Ireland criticising, rightly so, and holding people to account, as opposed to kind of saying, well, okay, come on in and help us. If you think we're doing a crap job, come and help us.
Yeah, what are they afraid of?
Well, being abused, But
in terms of inviting somebody in, is it a feeling that there may be kind of people on the outside looking in, and if you invite them in, they want to become significant power brokers, and they can't allow that to be kind of chipped away at?
Maybe, or I don't know. Maybe it's just that the organisation doesn't have the time and the resources and the ability to deal with all that kind of stuff. Maybe it was purely an oversight.
Or maybe if there is an actual sort of realisation that this sort of thing might help, it might actually change. Maybe that realisation just isn't there, because from everything Alan McLoughlin says there, it seems that the apology from the FAI was genuine. It was a slip of the mind. It wasn't at the forefront of their thinking, looking ahead to the Northern Ireland friendly. They weren't thinking about 1993. And in fairness to them, they did pick up the phone and they apologised to Alan McLoughlin. So I wonder if that's
the start of something.
If that's symptomatic of other areas as well, that perhaps if it's if the message got communicated to the top brass of the FAI, that maybe there are other avenues that could be explored that would help your goal, which is everybody else's goal, which is Ireland qualifying for major tournaments, grassroots football in Ireland doing well, the League of Ireland doing well, then maybe they would listen. Maybe they would actually think that, okay, there's actually alternatives here to the ones that we're already exploring.
Imagine if at half-time they had McLoughlin recreate the goal with people from both teams and a quick interview with whatever the TV broadcaster is. Everybody is staying at half-time to watch that, and there's a bit of crack around it, and there's a kind of a sense of, okay. But look, at the same time, you can't always be trapped by the ghosts of the past. This is 25 years ago. That's a quarter of a century. There were, you would hope, not that many players, unfortunately, who weren't born at the time when that goal was scored in the Ireland team. The vast majority of them were. But, there's a whole generation from this is kind of just old stuff that people bang on about.
Old stuff is interesting and important too.
Ad nauseum. So